the hunt for Nosferatu. The Carpathian winds howled like wailing spirits as Count Dracula strode across the frost-covered battlements of his ancient castle. He paused for a moment, his sharp gaze fixed on the distant horizon where storm clouds gathered like funeral shrouds. The distant peaks, capped in silver snow, seemed to quiver beneath the weight of an ancient malevolence. The stench of pestilence and rot had reached his lands. Reports had come from distant villages, entire families drained of life, their homes overrun with rats. Dracula knew the hand behind this destruction. Orlok, the mere name sent a wave of fury through him. Count Orlok, the Nosferatu, was a creature far more foul than any other of their kind. Dracula may have been a predator, a ruler of death in elegant form, but Orlok was a grotesque plague, the embodiment of corruption. His presence was an insult to the bloodline of true vampires. Dracula's pride demanded vengeance.
I will break you.
Dracula whispered into the wind, and with that, he descended the stone stairs into the darkness below. The journey. Dracula set out that very night, his dark cloak swirling like shadows come to life. He traveled alone, his mind focused and resolute. He passed through forests of withered pines and glided over mist-choked valleys. The stars above flickered like dying embers as he moved faster than any mortal I could follow. At last, he reached the outer village of Volkova, where the scent of death hung thick in the air. The homes were empty save for the remnants of lives, hastily abandoned tables overturned, cribs left to rot, bowls of spoiled food swarming with flies. Dracula moved forward, his sharp senses leading him toward the heart of the carnage. His eyes narrowed when he spotted the ruined church at the edge of the village. The sky rumbled with distant thunder as he stepped through the ruined archway, boots crunching on shattered glass and bones. And there, standing among the ruins, was Orlok, the Nosferatu revealed. Orlok's form was hideous, hunched and gaunt, his skin stretched tight over his bones like wax-covered parchment. His long, bat-like ears twitched at the faintest sound. His crooked fingers, tipped with claw-like nails, were folded in front of him like a corpse in its tomb. His yellow teeth protruded from a rat-like snout, and his eyes clouded and colorless fixed on Dracula with a mixture of hunger and madness.
You've come, Dracula.
Orlok hissed. His voice was thick with mockery.
How noble, how pathetic.
Dracula took a step forward, his form tall and regal despite the rot and ruin around him. His crimson eyes burned with contempt.
You infest my lands with your filth. You spread disease like a coward. I have come to cleanse the world of your existence.
Orlok bared his teeth in a grotesque grin.
Cleanse? You are as damned as I am, Vlad Dracula. You drink their blood. You steal their lives. We are brothers in darkness.
No.
Dracula's voice was calm but deadly.
You are a parasite. I am a king.
Orlok's grin vanished. With a deafening screech, he launched himself forward, moving with terrifying speed. Dracula met him in the center of the chapel, their clash shaking the very walls. The battle of darkness. Orlok's claws slashed at Dracula's chest, cutting through his elegant tunic and drawing black, viscous blood. Dracula hissed in pain, but retaliated with blinding precision, driving his fist into Orlok's face with the force of a cannonball. Orlok staggered but recovered quickly, his feral instincts driving him into a frenzy. The two monsters became a whirlwind of motion, their forms blurring in the dim light. Orlok's talons raked Dracula's face, slicing deep into his cheek. Blood dripped down Dracula's pale skin as he growled, his fangs bared. Orlok was unrelenting, his strength fueled by centuries of madness and hunger. He seized Dracula by the throat and hurled him across the chapel. Dracula smashed into the altar, shattering the ancient stone. Before he could recover, Orlok was upon him, his claws digging into Dracula's shoulders as he pressed him down.
You will die here, Dracula.
Orlok snarled, his rancid breath filling Dracula's nostrils.
I will feast upon your bones.
Dracula's vision darkened as Orlok's strength bore down on him. He felt his ribs creak under the pressure, but Dracula was not finished. With a feral roar, he summoned every ounce of his ancient power. His eyes blazed red as he grabbed Orlok's wrist and wrenched them apart. With a swift motion, Dracula drove his knee into Orlok's chest, forcing the creature back. Orlok stumbled, and Dracula surged forward, grabbing a jagged wooden beam from the wreckage. But Orlok was fast. He twisted away and lunged forward, sinking his teeth into Dracula's neck. The pain was blinding. Dracula felt his strength begin to ebb as Orlok fed. He staggered, nearly collapsing. Orlok's monstrous grin widened as he tightened his grip.
I will drain you dry.
But even as the world spun, Dracula whispered through clenched teeth.
You will choke on me.
With a surge of fury, Dracula drove the jagged beam upward with all his might. The sharp wood plunged into Orlok's chest, splintering bone and piercing his corrupted heart. Orlok's eyes widened in disbelief. He screeched in agony, releasing Dracula as he writhed and convulsed. His body began to crumble, his pale flesh turning to ash and dust. Dracula staggered back, clutching his bleeding neck as he watched Orlok disintegrate. The Nosferatu let out one final, unearthly scream before his form collapsed into a pile of ash that the wind scattered across the chapel floor. The aftermath. Dracula stood alone in the ruined chapel, blood dripping from his wounds. His breath was ragged, though he did not need to breathe. He looked down at the ashes of Orlok and spat.
Not even death will remember you.
Dracula whispered. The first rays of dawn began to crest over the distant mountains, their golden light brushing against the chapel ruins. Dracula pulled his cloak tight around him and vanished into the shadows, leaving behind the empty chapel and the memory of a plague extinguished. The land was cleansed, but Dracula knew the darkness of the world would never truly fade. Still, one thing was certain: there would never be another Orlok.